I found the pregnancy test that wasn't mine and uncovered my wife's secret affair. Now I'm exposing the truth, reclaiming my life, and watching her world crumble. The pregnancy test wasn't mine, that much was obvious. I found it shoved in the trash can of our master bathroom, hidden beneath a crumpled pile of tissues and an empty shampoo bottle. It was positive, 2 solid pink lines, clear as day. My hands froze when I pulled it out, and for a second, I just stared at it, trying to wrap my head around the fact that my wife, Mallory, hadn't said a word to me. We weren't trying for a baby. In fact, she'd been dodging any kind of intimacy with me for months. Headaches, late nights at work, her need for space, every excuse in the book. But suddenly there it was, proof not just of a pregnancy, but of something much, much darker. My mind raced as I stood there, holding the test, with the kind of fury and disbelief that makes your chest tighten until you can't breathe. I knew Mallory well enough to know she didn't make mistakes. She was calculating, always 3 steps ahead, and if she'd let this slip, it was because she never thought I'd find it, or maybe she was just arrogant enough to think I wouldn't put the pieces together. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been too easy. No, I needed to be smart about this. Mallory was a master manipulator, and if I came at her with nothing but suspicions, she'd twist it all around until I was the one apologizing by the end of it. I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. Instead, I put the test back exactly where I found it, taking care to rearrange the trash so it looked untouched. Then I walked out of that bathroom like nothing had happened, even though my entire world had just flipped upside down. My hands were still shaking when I sat down at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through my phone as I listened for her footsteps upstairs. When she finally came down, hair damp from the shower, she didn't even glance at me. She just poured herself a coffee and started scrolling through Instagram like she didn't have a care in the world. I couldn't believe it. She had the audacity to act like everything was normal, like I hadn't just stumbled across the most damning evidence of her betrayal. I wanted to scream, to throw the mug of coffee right out of her smug, oblivious hands and demand answers. But I didn't, not yet. Instead, I smiled at her, calm as a saint, and said, "You look like you slept well. Long day at work today?" Mallory glanced up briefly, her expression unreadable, then shrugged. Same old, meetings, deadlines, the usual. The casual way she said it made my stomach churn. She wasn't just lying, she was good at it, effortless. But if she thought I was just some oblivious husband who'd let her get away with whatever she was doing, she had another thing coming. I was going to figure out exactly what she was hiding, and when I did, she'd regret ever underestimating me. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was restless or second-guessing myself, but because my brain was in overdrive. Mallory was playing a game, and I needed to learn the rules if I was going to beat her. I lay there, listening to her soft, even breathing as she slept beside me, completely unaware of the storm she'd unleashed. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation for the pregnancy test, but deep down, I already knew better. By morning, I had a plan. I decided to start small, observe her, look for inconsistencies, let her think she was in control. People like Mallory get careless when they think they've already won. I just had to be patient. At breakfast, she acted like nothing was wrong. She even kissed me on the cheek, which felt like an insult now, a sick little performance meant to keep up appearances. I played my part too, smiling and laughing at her jokes, but all the while I was watching her every move. I noticed the way she clutched her phone like it was glued to her hand. Normally she'd leave it on the counter or the coffee table, but not today. She even took it with her to the bathroom, which was strange considering how long she'd stay in there, 15, 20 minutes sometimes. "Everything okay?" I asked casually as she came out of the bathroom for the 3rd time that morning. "You've been in there a lot lately." Mallory froze for half a second, just long enough to register the question, then recovered with a quick laugh. "Yeah, just some stomach issues. Probably that sushi we had the other night." That was a lie. We hadn't eaten sushi in weeks. I smiled and nodded, pretending to buy it, but inside my resolve hardened. If she was lying about something as small as that, what else was she lying about? Later that day, while she was at work, I decided to dig deeper. I'd never been the type to snoop, but this was different. This wasn't paranoia, this was self-preservation. I started with the trash, going through every piece of it, even though I hated myself for doing it. Sure enough, I found another clue. A crumpled receipt from a boutique in the next town over. It was dated 2 days ago and listed items I'd never seen in our house: luxury candles, silk lingerie, and a men's cologne. My heart was pounding as I stared at the receipt. She hadn't bought those things for me, that much was obvious. But for who? And why? I felt like I was in a bad movie, piecing together clues in real time. The pregnancy test, the unexplained purchases, the constant late nights at work. It was all adding up to something I didn't want to admit out loud just yet. That evening, I tested her again. We were sitting on the couch, watching some mindless reality show, when I casually asked, "So, who's the cologne for?" Mallory's head snapped toward me, her expression a mix of confusion and panic. "What are you talking about?" I held up the receipt, watching her face carefully. "This from Tuesday. I didn't realize you'd gone shopping." For a split second, her mask slipped, her eyes widened, and her mouth opened like she was about to say something, but then she recovered. She laughed, like I had just told a stupid joke. "Oh, that's for my boss. His birthday's coming up, and the team pitched in for a gift." I didn't think it was a big deal, so I didn't mention it. It was a good lie, quick, believable, and just vague enough to discourage follow-up questions. But it wasn't good enough. Not this time. "Oh, nice of you to take the lead on that," I said, smiling like I believed her. "I'm sure he'll love it." Mallory relaxed, sinking back into the couch with a relieved sigh. She had no idea I was on to her, that I was already 2 steps ahead. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. This was about making sure that when the truth came out, she couldn't wriggle her way out of it. The next step in my plan was to confirm what my instincts were screaming at me. Mallory had secrets, and I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt. If she wanted to play games, she'd soon learn I wasn't the clueless husband she thought I was. The following morning, after she left for work, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. It wasn't a random decision. Her late nights at the office had been too frequent, too convenient, and I wanted to see for myself where she was really going. I waited down the street, parked behind an old pickup truck where she couldn't see me. At first, everything seemed normal. She pulled out of the driveway in her sleek white SUV, coffee in hand, looking every bit the polished professional. I stayed a safe distance behind, following her route downtown, expecting her to head to her office like she always said she did. But she didn't. Instead, Mallory took an unexpected turn, one that led her straight to a quaint little cafe on the edge of town. My pulse quickened as I parked a block away, far enough not to be noticed but close enough to watch her every move. She stepped out of the car, wearing an outfit far too nice for work, a fitted dress I hadn't seen before, paired with heels that clicked sharply against the pavement. My stomach churned as I realized this wasn't just a coffee run. She walked into the cafe like she owned the place, and within minutes, a man joined her. He was tall, dressed in business casual, with a kind of easy confidence that made my blood boil. They sat together at a corner table, leaning in close, talking and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm in there, flip the table and demand answers, but I held back. Losing my cool now wouldn't get me the proof I needed. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped a few photos, my hands shaking as I zoomed in to capture their cozy little rendezvous. They stayed there for over an hour, sipping lattes and sharing what looked like a pastry. When they finally left, I kept my distance, following as they walked back to their cars. The man reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Mallory's face before leaning in to kiss her cheek. She didn't pull away. If anything, she lingered, smiling up at him like he was the center of her universe. I felt sick, furious, but most of all, I felt betrayed in a way I hadn't thought possible. Watching her with him, so carefree and intimate, was like a punch to the gut. But instead of letting the anger consume me, I forced myself to stay focused. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I drove home in silence, my mind racing with questions. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And how much longer did she think she could keep me in the dark? I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. Mallory had underestimated me, and when the time came, I'd make damn sure she regretted it. When Mallory came home that evening, she was all smiles, carrying takeout bags like the picture of a loving wife who wanted to surprise her husband. It was almost laughable. She set the bags on the kitchen counter and kissed me on the cheek, like she hadn't just spent her morning giggling over pastries with her mystery man. "I got your favorite," she chirped, pulling out boxes of barbecue ribs and mac and cheese. "Figured we could have a nice dinner together. You've been working so hard lately." I forced a smile, keeping my tone light. "That's thoughtful of you." "Thanks, Mal." The way her eyes sparkled with self-satisfaction made my stomach turn. She thought she had me fooled, that I'd eat her ribs and smile like the devoted husband while she played house. But tonight, I wasn't just pretending to be clueless, I was setting the stage. Over dinner, I watched her closely, the way she overcompensated with small talk, throwing out questions about my day and joking about her boss's incompetence. She was putting on a show, likely to cover up the guilt she wasn't ready to admit. I matched her energy, laughing along and even sharing a story about an annoying coworker. The more relaxed she became, the more confident I felt about my next move. After we finished eating, I cleared the plates while she leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. I casually wiped my hands on a dish towel and asked, "So, how's the office these days? You seem busier than ever." She didn't even look up. "Oh, you know how it is. Same old grind, deadlines, client meetings, the usual." Must be tough, juggling everything, I said, my voice steady, my face carefully neutral. I mean, late nights, early mornings. It's impressive. That got her attention. She glanced up, her smile faltering just slightly. It's not that bad. Besides, I'm doing it for us, right? Building our future. Right, I said, nodding like I bought it. Like this morning. You had that coffee meeting, didn't you? Mallory froze just for a split second, but it was enough to confirm everything I already knew. Her grip on the phone tightened, and she quickly masked her reaction with a laugh. Oh yeah, just some networking thing. Nothing exciting. I leaned against the counter, folding my arms. That's interesting. You never mentioned it before. Networking sounds cozy. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her smile thinning. Ethan, what's with the third degree? It was just a work thing. Why are you making it sound weird? Not at all, I said, raising my hands in mock surrender. Just curious, that's all. She watched me carefully, clearly trying to gauge whether I was onto her. After a tense moment, she shrugged and turned her attention back to her phone, muttering something about me being paranoid lately. But I wasn't paranoid. I was methodical. That night, after Mallory went to bed, I stayed up, reviewing the photos I'd taken earlier. Each one was a dagger, cutting through any lingering hope I had that this was all some misunderstanding. Her smiles, the way she leaned in close to him, the kiss. It was all there in vivid detail. She had no idea I was building my case, piece by piece, ensuring there'd be no escape when the truth finally came out. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was consumed by anger, but because I was planning my next move. Mallory had spent months crafting her web of lies, but she didn't realize I was about to burn it all down. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she was smarter than me. That would be her biggest mistake. The next day, I decided it was time to step up my game. Watching and waiting had served its purpose, but now I needed answers, real answers. I wasn't going to sit back and let Mallory control the narrative anymore. It was time to dig deeper, and for that, I needed leverage. While she was at work, I installed a small tracking app on her laptop. Mallory wasn't exactly tech-savvy, and her passwords were laughably predictable. Within minutes, I had access to her email and calendar. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but pride didn't matter anymore. The truth did. Her email inbox was revealing, to say the least. Among the usual work correspondence were messages from someone named Luke R. The emails weren't explicit, but they didn't have to be. Their playful tone, inside jokes, and frequent meeting arrangements told me everything I needed to know. Luke wasn't just a colleague or a casual friend. He was the guy, the man from the cafe. Then there was her calendar. It was meticulously organized, filled with work meetings, project deadlines, and personal events. One entry in particular caught my eye. Friday, 3 p.m. Dr. Carlson, prenatal checkup. My heart stopped. Prenatal checkup. She hadn't just lied about being pregnant. She was actively managing her pregnancy behind my back. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. But instead of letting the rage consume me, I focused on the opportunity it presented. This was my smoking gun, the one thing she couldn't twist or deny, but I wasn't ready to confront her just yet. Not until I could bring everything down in one devastating blow. Later that day, I followed up on the next piece of the puzzle, Luke. His email signature listed his company and title, so I did some digging. It didn't take long to find his LinkedIn profile. A senior consultant at a high-end firm, married, 2 kids, perfect. That detail was a gift. It meant I wasn't just dealing with Mallory's lies anymore. Luke had something to lose too. If this man thought he could waltz into my life, destroy my marriage, and walk away unscathed, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. By the time Mallory got home that evening, I'd already begun laying the groundwork for my revenge. She walked through the door, exhausted and distracted, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she tossed her bag onto the counter. "Hey," she said absent-mindedly, rifling through the fridge for a bottle of water. "How was your day?" I smiled, keeping my tone casual. "Not bad. How about yours? Busy?" She hesitated, her head still buried in the fridge. "Yeah, the usual. Meetings all day. I'm wiped." "Anything interesting come up?" I pressed, my voice steady. She straightened up, glancing at me briefly before shaking her head. "Nope, just the same old grind." It took everything I had not to laugh. The lies rolled off her tongue so easily, so effortlessly, that I almost admired her audacity. Almost. "Glad to hear it," I said, forcing a smile. "By the way, I was thinking of heading out Friday afternoon. Got some errands to run. That okay with you?" Mallory barely looked up. "Of course. Do whatever you need to. Perfect." She had no idea I'd seen her calendar, no idea I knew about her appointment, or that I planned to be there. As I watched her settle onto the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, I felt a strange sense of calm. Mallory thought she was untouchable, but she was wrong. So very wrong. This wasn't just about exposing her anymore. It was about making sure she never forgot what happens when you betray someone who trusted you. Friday arrived, and I was ready. Mallory left the house in the morning as usual, dressed for work with her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She kissed me goodbye, like everything was fine, like she wasn't hiding an entire double life from me. I smiled back, waved her off, and then got to work. By 2:30, I was parked across the street from the clinic listed in her calendar. The building was small, unassuming, and tucked between a pharmacy and a dental office. I didn't know exactly what I was expecting to find, but my gut told me this was the moment everything would unravel. I waited in the car, eyes glued to the entrance. A steady stream of women came and went, some alone, others with partners or friends. Then, at precisely 2:58, Mallory's white SUV pulled into the lot. She stepped out, looking around nervously, like she knew she was doing something she shouldn't. And then I saw him, Luke. He was already standing by the entrance, wearing a pressed shirt and slacks, holding a takeout cup of coffee like this was just another casual Friday. Mallory spotted him immediately, her face lighting up in a way that made my stomach churn. She walked up to him and they embraced, not a casual hug, but a lingering one, the kind that spoke volumes about what they were to each other. I clenched the steering wheel, forcing myself to stay calm. This was it, proof. Watching them walk into the clinic together was like a nail in the coffin.
They were in this together, and they thought they were untouchable, but they weren't.
Once they were inside, I followed. I didn't walk through the main entrance. I wasn't ready to confront them just yet. Instead, I went around the side of the building, looking for another way in. A delivery door was propped open near the back, likely for staff, and I slipped inside unnoticed. The hallway was quiet, lined with generic office doors and bland medical posters. I could hear faint voices coming from down the hall, and I followed the sound until I reached a partially open door. Peering inside, I saw them sitting side by side, talking with a doctor. Mallory was smiling, her hand resting on her stomach as the doctor flipped through a chart. Luke looked every bit the proud partner, nodding along and asking questions like this was the happiest moment of his life. My blood boiled. I wanted to barge in to expose them right then and there, but I held back. This wasn't the place or the time, not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Every word, every gesture, every smile. It was all on tape now, evidence unshakable and undeniable. I left the clinic before they even noticed me, my heart pounding with adrenaline and fury. Back in my car, I reviewed the footage, each second fueling the fire inside me. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, this was about humiliation, about destroying the little fantasy world they built behind my back. By the time I got home, I had a plan. Mallory was going to pay for what she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. And Luke? He wouldn't walk away unscathed either. I wasn't just going to confront them, I was going to burn their entire charade to the ground. The weekend rolled in like a quiet storm, the kind that everyone feels but no one can predict. Mallory acted as if everything was normal, smiling, chatting, even suggesting we go out for dinner Saturday night. I played along, the perfect picture of a doting husband, but inside, I was building something she wouldn't see coming. My plan was set, and the first step would come at dinner. She picked a SWSR system. Here's the continuation of the revised text with proper punctuation, corrected spelling, and numbers converted to text where applicable, maintaining the original English language and narrative style. Swanky Italian restaurant downtown, the kind with crisp white tablecloths and overpriced wine. Mallory wore a deep red dress I hadn't seen before, paired with heels that matched the shade perfectly. She looked stunning, which only made the anger simmering beneath my calm exterior even hotter. She was playing her role, acting like the wife she hadn't been for months, and I let her. For now. We were halfway through the meal, her fork twirling strands of linguine, when I struck. "You know," I said, swirling the wine in my glass, "I've been thinking a lot about our future." Mallory looked up, her smile faltering for a brief moment before she recovered. "Oh? What brought that on?" I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone casual. "I don't know. Lately you've seemed distracted, like something's been on your mind. I figured maybe it was time we talked about it." She blinked, caught off guard. "Distracted? What are you talking about?" "I've just been busy with work, you know that." "Work," I repeated, nodding thoughtfully. "Right. And all those late nights at the office, the networking meetings, the trips out of town? That's all just work, huh?" Her grip on the fork tightened, her knuckles turning white. "Ethan, I don't know what you're trying to say, but it's starting to sound like you don't trust me." "Oh, I trust you, Mallory," I said, leaning forward now, my voice dropping to a low, measured tone. "I trust you to always look out for yourself, to cover your tracks, to think you're smarter than everyone else in the room. But here's the thing, I'm not as stupid as you think I am. Her face froze, the color draining as I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't even need to unlock it. The thumbnail of the video from the clinic was enough. I held it up, letting her get a good look, watching her world crumble in real time. "What the hell is that?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous. "Oh, you know what it is," I said, my tone almost mocking. "I followed you, Mallory. I saw everything. The clinic, Luke, the little prenatal pep talk with the doctor. You've been busy, haven't you?" Her eyes darted around the restaurant, panic creeping into her features. "Keep your voice down," she whispered, her tone sharp. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I leaned in closer, my voice barely above a whisper now. "Let me guess. You were planning to pin the baby on me, right? Play happy family while sneaking off with Luke whenever you felt like it? Or was he going to stay in the shadows, the little secret you thought I'd never figure out?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time in months, Mallory looked powerless, and it was intoxicating. "Here's the deal," I continued, my voice calm but laced with steel. "I've got everything I need, photos, videos, emails, you name it. So you've got two options. One, you come clean right here, right now, and we figure out what happens next. Or two, I walk out of this restaurant and send all of this to Luke's wife. What's it going to be?" Her face twisted into something between fury and fear, her mask slipping entirely. For the first time, the real Mallory was on display. Not the polished, charming version she showed the world, but the cold, calculating liar who thought she could control everything. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. I leaned back, smiling. "Try me." Mallory sat there, frozen, her perfectly curated composure unraveling in front of me. The glow of the candlelight seemed to flicker against her now pale face. Her red lipstick suddenly smudged, as if the pressure of the moment had physically weighed on her. She opened her mouth, closed it, then glanced around the restaurant like she was searching for an escape route. But there was none, not this time. "You don't know what you're doing, Ethan," she finally whispered, her voice sharp and biting. "This is my life. You can't just—" "Your life?" I interrupted, my voice still calm but with enough steel to cut through her excuses. "Funny, I thought it was our life, Mallory. But clearly, you've been building something else on the side. Don't you think it's time I got to know the full story?" She narrowed her eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she placed her fork down. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth. "You want the truth? Here it is. Yes, I've been seeing Luke, but it's not what you think." I laughed, loud enough to draw a glance from a nearby table. "Not what I think? You're joking, right, Mallory? I followed you to the clinic. I saw you with him. You're having his child, for God's sake. What part of that am I misunderstanding?" Her expression darkened, the panic in her eyes replaced with something colder. "You don't get it. Luke, he's different. He understands me in ways you never could. You've been so boring, Ethan, so predictable. I needed more." There it was, the knife in the chest. She didn't even bother trying to deny it. In fact, she looked almost defiant, like she wanted to hurt me, like my pain was her victory. The realization hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just lying to protect herself. She wanted to punish me for daring to catch her. I sat back, nodding slowly as her words sank in. "Boring," I repeated, my voice low. "Predictable." "Is that what this was about? You got tired of the man who supported you, who built a life with you, and decided to go play house with someone else, all because you were bored? You're twisting this," she snapped, her voice rising despite her earlier attempt to keep things quiet. "I needed something different, something exciting. And don't act like you're some perfect saint. You've been distant, wrapped up in your own little world for months." I let her words hang in the air for a moment, then leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "You want to talk about being distant? How about you shutting me out for months, lying to my face, and plotting to make me raise another man's child? Is that exciting enough for you?" Her face flushed red with anger, but she didn't respond. She couldn't. There was no defense for what she'd done, and we both knew it. I pulled my phone out again, tapping the screen to bring up the recording from the clinic. "You see this?" I said, holding it up. "This is my insurance policy. This goes straight to Luke's wife if you try to twist this conversation, or lie to me again. And trust me, I'll hit send without a second thought." Mallory's defiance cracked, her bravado crumbling as the reality of the situation set in. "You wouldn't," she whispered, but her voice wavered. "Try me," I said, my tone icy. "You thought you could play me, Mallory. You thought I'd never figure it out, but here we are. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything. Everything. And then you're going to start thinking about how to make this right. If you don't, Luke's life explodes. Your reputation burns to the ground. And this fairy tale of yours ends in flames. Your move." She stared at me, her eyes wide and full of fear, her hands gripping the edge of the table like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. For the first time in months, Mallory was speechless. I stood up, sliding my phone back into my pocket. "Take your time, Mallory, but don't take too long. You're on borrowed time now, and I'm not feeling particularly generous." Without waiting for her to respond, I walked out of the restaurant, leaving her sitting there in stunned silence. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control. Mallory had played her cards, and now it was my turn. When I got home, I didn't wait for her. I poured myself a drink, sat down at the kitchen table, and started writing out the final steps of my plan. She thought the dinner confrontation was the climax, but she had no idea what was coming next. The lies she told, the betrayal she orchestrated, and the arrogance she flaunted. It was all going to collapse around her. By the time she came through the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood, I was ready. She hesitated when she saw me still sitting at the table, calm and collected, with my drink in hand. Her mask was back on, fake composure, the practiced smile of someone who thought they still had a chance to salvage control. "You walked out on me," she said, her voice sharp as she set her purse on the counter. "That was humiliating, Ethan." "Good," I said simply, taking a slow sip. "Get used to it." Her jaw clenched. "Are we really doing this? You've made your point. Yes, I made a mistake, but I'm still your wife. We can fix this." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound that made her flinch. "Fix this, Mallory? This isn't a broken vase. You didn't make a mistake. You lied, you cheated, and you tried to trap me into raising another man's child. There's no fixing this." She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "Fine. You want to end things? Go ahead. But let's not pretend you're some innocent victim here. You've been distant for months, Ethan. You shut me out. You stopped trying. Maybe if you'd paid more attention, none of this would have happened." There it was again, the deflection, the gaslighting, the shameless attempt to make her betrayal my fault. But I didn't take the bait. I stood up, towering over her, and met her glare head on. "Funny you say that," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "because I've been paying plenty of attention, like when you skipped out of work to meet Luke, or when you bought him that cologne and called it a team gift, or my favorite, when you walked into that clinic together for your prenatal appointment. Yeah, Mallory, I've been paying attention." Her face turned pale, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "You know, I wasn't planning to get messy," I continued, pacing slowly around the kitchen. "I thought maybe I'd just leave, let you deal with the fallout on your own. But then I thought, no, that's too easy. You don't get to walk away from this like nothing happened." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling now. I stopped pacing and pulled out my phone again, holding it up so she could see the screen. "I've got everything, Mallory. The photos, the videos, the emails. And guess what? Luke's wife is one click away from seeing all of it." Her eyes widened in horror. "Ethan, no. You can't." "Oh, I can," I interrupted, "and I will, unless of course you want to make this easy for me." She stared at me, her hands trembling as she tried to maintain her composure. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "First, I want the truth," I said, my tone sharp. "All of it. No more lies, no more games. And second, I want you out. Pack your things, move in with Luke or wherever the hell you want to go, but you're done here. This is my house, and I'm not sharing it with you for one more second." She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "You're being unreasonable. We can work this out." "Unreasonable?" I snapped, my voice rising for the first time. "You don't get to call me unreasonable. You lied, you cheated, and you tried to trap me in your mess. This is your doing, Mallory, not mine. So pack your things, or I send everything to Luke's wife." "Your call." For a moment, I thought she might fight back, but the fire in her eyes flickered and died. She knew she'd lost. Without another word, she turned and walked upstairs, her footsteps heavy with defeat. I stayed in the kitchen, listening as she moved around the bedroom, packing her bags. It wasn't over yet, not by a long shot, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally ahead. Mallory had underestimated me, and now she was paying the price. And Luke? His reckoning was coming next. Mallory was gone by the next morning. She didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a note, just packed her bags and disappeared like a thief in the night. I watched her car pull out of the driveway from the upstairs window, a strange mix of anger and relief churning inside me. The house felt different without her, quieter, almost hollow, but that emptiness was better than the suffocating weight of her lies. Now it was Luke's turn. I'd spent the night drafting a carefully worded email to his wife, Christine. I knew her name from his social media profile, a detail I'd filed away when I first started digging into him. She seemed like the picture-perfect suburban mom, smiling in every family photo, her kids hanging off her arms, their golden retriever always in the frame. She had no idea what her husband had been up to, but that was about to change. The email was simple but effective. I attached the photos and the video from the clinic, along with screenshots of Luke and Mallory's flirty emails. I didn't embellish or add commentary, just presented the facts, letting the evidence speak for itself. Before sending it, I took one last look at the folder of incriminating files. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, this was about justice. They'd built their little fantasy world on a foundation of lies, and it was time to tear it down. I hit send. The fallout was immediate. Within an hour, Christine responded, her message a whirlwind of shock and gratitude. She hadn't seen it coming, she said, and thanked me for telling her the truth. I could almost hear the devastation in her words, the betrayal cutting her as deeply as it had cut me. But there was no sympathy left in me, not for her, not for Luke, and certainly not for Mallory. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered, and sure enough, it was Luke. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he barked, his voice laced with panic. "Cleaning up a mess," I replied coolly. "A mess you helped make." "You had no right." "No right?" I cut him off, my tone icy. "You slept with my wife, you lied to your own, and you think I don't have the right to call you out on it? Spare me." Luke was silent for a moment, probably trying to come up with some excuse, but I didn't give him the chance. "Let me make this very clear," I continued. "If you or Mallory try to come near me again, if you so much as send me a text, I'll take this public. I've got more than enough to ruin you completely, Luke. Your wife, your job, your perfect little life. They'll all go up in flames. So unless you want that, stay out of my way." "You're a real piece of work," he spat, but there was no fight left in his voice. "No, Luke," I said, my voice steady. "That's you. I'm just the guy who won't let you get away with it." I hung up before he could respond, a wave of satisfaction washing over me. Luke might have thought he could intimidate me, but he just learned the hard way that I wasn't the type to back down. That evening, I poured myself another drink and sat on the back porch, staring out at the yard I'd worked so hard to make my own. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it felt different now. Controlled, directed. Mallory and Luke had tried to destroy me, but in the end, they'd only destroyed themselves. I knew there'd be more fallout in the days to come. Mallory might try to spin the story, and Luke might attempt damage control, but it didn't matter. I had the upper hand now, and I wasn't letting go of it. For the first time in months, I felt free. The days that followed were a whirlwind of aftermath. Christine, Luke's wife, sent me a final email, short, direct, and filled with raw emotion. She told me she was filing for divorce, thanking me again for exposing the truth. She didn't hold back either, saying she hoped Mallory and Luke got exactly what they deserved. As for Mallory, she tried reaching out once, sending a single, pathetic text, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it. There was nothing left to say. Mallory had burned every bridge, and I wasn't about to rebuild it for her. Let her face the consequences. Let her run to Luke or whatever rock she'd crawl under next. She wasn't my problem anymore. The silence in the house felt different now, peaceful even. I began focusing on myself for the first time in years, rediscovering hobbies I'd long forgotten. I picked up my guitar again, started running in the mornings, and reconnected with old friends who had always wondered why I'd married someone like Mallory. The weight of her betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. It was just a scar, a reminder of what I'd endured and what I'd overcome. One afternoon while organizing my office, I came across an old photo of Mallory and me from the early days of our marriage. We were smiling, carefree, wrapped up in a version of love that felt a million miles away now. I stared at it for a long moment, then tossed it into the shredder. That chapter of my life was over. I wasn't the same person anymore, and I had no intention of looking back. As for Mallory and Luke, I heard through mutual acquaintances that their relationship didn't last. Whatever spark they thought they had fizzled out under the weight of guilt, shame, and the destruction they'd caused. Mallory moved to a different city, and Luke's reputation at work took a hit after Christine aired their dirty laundry. Poetic justice, if you ask me. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that betrayal doesn't just break you, it rebuilds you, stronger and smarter than you were before. I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, but in some strange way, I'm grateful for it. It forced me to see things clearly, to shed the dead weight, and to prioritize myself for once. To anyone reading this, wondering if they should stay in a toxic situation or fight for someone who doesn't value them, don't. Walk away, hold your head high, and let the people who betray you drown in their own mess. Because trust me, there's nothing more satisfying than watching them crumble while you rise.